In the fading industrial town of Millbrook, the old Garrison textile factory stands like a crumbling monument to better days. Most locals drive past without a second glance, but not Eleanor Garrison. 6 months pregnant and newly widowed, she stares up at the broken windows and weathered brick, her unexpected inheritance. The factory that once employed half the town now belongs to her. As she walks through the cavernous main floor, her footsteps echo against concrete, dust motes dancing in shafts of light. A peculiar chill passes through her when the building seems to exhale around her. Something about this place feels oddly familiar, as if it's been waiting for her. What secrets lie beneath this forgotten factory, and why does Eleanor feel connected to them? In her makeshift bedroom within the factory's old administrative office, Eleanor Garrison wakes with a start. Her hand instinctively moves to her rounded belly, feeling the gentle flutter of moss beneath. Dawn light filters through dusty windows, casting long shadows across filing cabinets repurposed as dresser drawers. She reaches for the leather-bound journal on her nightstand, opening to a fresh page. She writes the date, then pauses, pen hovering above paper. Another night of strange dreams, she finally adds. I keep seeing the factory as it once was, full of life and purpose. Is it memory, imagination, or something else entirely? Eleanor sets the journal aside and rises slowly, her body still adjusting to its changing center of gravity. At 36, pregnancy had come as a surprise, a bright spot in an otherwise devastating year. She studies her reflection in a vintage mirror, salvaged from one of the offices, dark circles beneath her eyes, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing one of Michael's old flannel shirts that still somehow smells faintly of him. 3 months since the accident, 3 months of grieving her husband while preparing to bring his child into the world alone. A knock at the factory's side entrance interrupts her thoughts. Coming, she calls, navigating carefully down the metal staircase. Hector Martinez stands at the door, clipboard in hand, expression skeptical as he surveys the cavernous space. As the only contractor willing to even look at the building, Eleanor needs him more than he needs this job. Mrs. Garrison, Eleanor, please, she corrects gently. Eleanor, I've run some preliminary numbers. He flips through papers. The structural issues alone would cost. Money isn't the issue, she interrupts. The insurance settlement from Michael's accident, her voice catches. Let's just say I have resources. Hector's expression softens slightly. It's not just money. This place has been abandoned for decades. You're living in what's essentially a construction zone, and in your condition, Eleanor's posture straightens, a reflex from her days managing architectural projects in Boston. I'm pregnant, not incapacitated. I spent 10 years restoring historic buildings before Michael died, before everything changed. I know what I'm getting into. Do you? A new voice joins the conversation. Eleanor turns to see her sister Lily standing in the doorway, arms crossed, elegant even in casual clothes. The door was open, Lily explains, her gaze taking in the vast space critically. So this is your big project. She doesn't bother hiding her disapproval. Hector, could you give us a minute? Eleanor asks. When he steps outside, Lily immediately closes the distance between them. Ellie, what are you doing here? You should be with family right now, not alone in this tetanus factory. I am with family. Eleanor rests a hand on her stomach. And I'm exactly where I need to be. Because of some deed from a grandfather you never even met? Lily counters. You don't owe him anything. Sell this place and come home. Home. Their childhood house in Boston feels like another lifetime now. The lawyer said, Grandfather Garrison specifically changed his will 3 months ago to leave this to me. Eleanor explains, moving toward a table covered with old factory documents. Don't you find that strange? He died the same week as Michael, leaving me this place as if he somehow knew what? Lily asks. That I would need something, a purpose. Eleanor gestures around. You see a liability. I see potential. The sisters' standoff is interrupted by another arrival. An elderly woman with a cane approaches slowly, her eyes bright despite her years. May Blackwood, she introduces herself. Town historian. When I heard a garrison had returned to the factory, I had to see for myself. Eleanor welcomes her in, grateful for the interruption. Did you know my grandfather, Harold? Indeed I did. And your grandmother Margaret, though she was gone before her time. May studies Eleanor's face. You have her eyes, you know. I wouldn't know, Eleanor admits. My father never spoke of her. Not surprising, there was quite the scandal when she disappeared. May notices Eleanor's startled expression. Oh dear, you didn't know. Disappeared? I was told she died of pneumonia. May's lips pressed together. That was the official story, but those of us who worked here knew different. That night, after everyone has gone, Eleanor retrieves the deed from her desk. In the quiet darkness, the factory creaks and sighs around her, as if settling into sleep. She traces her grandfather's signature, wondering why he left her this crumbling monument after decades of family estrangement. Just as she's about to return to her makeshift bedroom, a distinct sound echoes from the depths of the building, a rhythmic clacking, like machinery springing to life. Eleanor freezes, listening as the sound continues for several seconds before abruptly stopping. Just the building settling, she tells herself, not entirely convinced. She places her pregnancy journal on the table, adding one final line before heading to bed. I feel as though this place has been waiting for me. Morning light streams through tall factory windows as Eleanor unrolls a set of faded blueprints across a makeshift table. Dust motes dance in the sunbeams as she weighs down the corners with spare parts found scattered throughout the building. Her finger traces along the yellowed paper, brow furrowing. That's odd, she murmurs to herself. Hector arrives carrying coffee and a bag of pastries. Breakfast delivery, he announces, setting them down. What's odd? Eleanor motions him over. These blueprints don't match the actual building. See this section here? According to this, there should be another corridor behind the eastern wall, but there's nothing there. Hector studies the plans. Old industrial buildings like this often had changes during construction. Probably nothing. Maybe. Eleanor doesn't sound convinced. She takes a sip of coffee, grateful for the warmth and caffeine. I found these in a filing cabinet upstairs. The previous renovation never happened. These are dated 1963. Your grandfather's project. Eleanor nods. According to May, he tried to modernize but abandoned it suddenly. No one knows why. The baby kicks, and Eleanor places a hand on her belly, smiling. Someone's awake. Hector gestures toward the main floor. I brought my team's foreman to look at the support beams. Should I send him in? As Hector leaves, Eleanor continues studying the blueprints. The missing corridor bothers her. She grabs a measuring tape and walks to the eastern wall, running her hands along the rough brick surface. Her measurements confirm her suspicion. There's approximately 15 feet of unaccounted space between this wall and the exterior. She taps on different sections, listening for hollow sounds, but the bricks remain solid and unyielding. The factory intercom buzzes unexpectedly, making Eleanor jump. It's an ancient system she didn't even know still worked. Hello? She calls out, but only static answers her. May Blackwood's arrival provides a welcome distraction. The elderly historian brings a box of old photographs and newspaper clippings. Thought these might interest you, May says, settling into a chair. Your grandfather was quite the innovator in his day. The Garrison Mill employed half the town until the textile industry started moving overseas. Eleanor pulls out a newspaper with the headline, Garrison Mill introduces revolutionary weaving technique. What made his technique special? Eleanor asks. May's eyes take on a distant quality. Harold had ideas about weaving that went beyond mere cloth. Your grandmother Margaret was his muse. She had a gift with patterns, could create designs that seemed to move when you looked at them. Some folks found them unsettling. Eleanor examines a black and white photograph of workers standing before the factory. Is that her? She points to a dark-haired woman standing slightly apart from the others. Yes, that's Margaret. May peers closer. My, you do favor her. What happened to her? You mentioned she disappeared. May shifts uncomfortably. There was an accident in '64. A fire in the lower level. Margaret was presumed dead, though they never found. She stops abruptly. Well, that's ancient history now. As they talk, the lights flicker overhead. Once, twice, three times, in an unnervingly rhythmic pattern. Wiring shot in this old place, May comments, though her expression suggests uncertainty. Later, as evening approaches, Eleanor finds herself drawn to the eastern wall again. The blueprint discrepancy nags at her. She runs her hands along the brickwork, feeling for any irregularities. Her fingers catch on a slightly recessed brick. Pressing it produces no result, but turning it like a knob causes a soft click. A section of wall disguised to match the surrounding bricks shifts slightly. A door, Eleanor whispers, excitement and apprehension mingling in her chest. She pulls, but it's firmly locked. The keyhole appears ancient, unlike the modern locks elsewhere in the factory. Eleanor makes a note in her journal. Find the key. That night, as she lies in bed, the strange mechanical clicking sounds return, louder than before. Eleanor sits up, listening intently as the rhythmic noise continues for nearly a minute before stopping abruptly. The baby kicks forcefully, as if responding to the sound. You hear it too, don't you? Eleanor whispers, placing both hands on her belly. Something's happening in this place. Something wants to be found. She reaches for her pregnancy journal, making a simple entry. The factory is speaking to us. Tomorrow we start listening. Eleanor kneels before an ancient desk in what was once her grandfather's office, methodically emptying each drawer. Dust coats her fingers as she sorts through faded receipts, manufacturing orders, and employee records. The mysterious locked door has consumed her thoughts since its discovery. There has to be a key somewhere, she mutters, wincing as she straightens. At 6 months pregnant, her body protests such positions. The bottom drawer sticks. Eleanor tugs harder, and it finally gives way with a groan of wood against wood. Inside lies a single item, a small wooden box with ornate brass hinges. Her heart quickens as she lifts it onto the desk. The box itself has no lock, just a simple latch. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, rests an antique brass key, its bow intricately designed with intertwining patterns that remind Eleanor of the symbols on the factory blueprints. The phone rings, startling her. It's Lily. How's the tetanus factory today? Her sister asks, her tone light but concern evident. It's not as bad as you think, Eleanor responds, turning the key over in her hand. I'm making progress. Progress toward what, exactly? Ellie, I've been patient, but this obsession isn't healthy. You're about to have a baby. You need a real home. This will be a real home, Eleanor insists. I'm connecting with something here, Lily. Something important. You're connecting with a bunch of old bricks and cobwebs, Lily sighs. Is this about Michael? Because hiding in a derelict factory won't bring him back. The words sting. I have to go. Hector's here. Eleanor lies, ending the call before her emotions betray her. She clutches the key tightly, its metal warm against her palm. Something about it feels right, like it's been waiting for her. When Hector actually does arrive an hour later, Eleanor shows him the hidden door, but not the key. Something instinctual tells her to keep it to herself. Probably an old storage area, he suggests, examining the doorframe. Want me to break it open? Eleanor shakes her head. Not yet. Let's focus on stabilizing the main support beams first. That night, Eleanor dreams vividly. She sees a woman in 1940s clothing, working at a loom, creating patterns that seem to move and shift. The woman turns, revealing a face startlingly similar to Eleanor's own, her belly rounded with pregnancy. The patterns protect us, the woman says, They always have. Eleanor wakes with a gasp. The baby is kicking vigorously. Shh, little one, she soothes, rubbing her belly. Just a dream, but it felt like more. Eleanor reaches for her pregnancy journal, recording the dream in detail while it remains vivid in her mind. Morning brings Lily's unexpected arrival. Her sister looks around with poorly disguised horror at Eleanor's living conditions. Surprise inspection, Eleanor asks dryly, setting out 2 mugs for coffee. Sisterly concern, Lily counters. You've been dodging my calls. While Lily examines the renovation progress with skeptical eyes, Eleanor feels the weight of the brass key in her pocket. A magnetic pull draws her toward the hidden door, but she resists while her sister is present. At least let me help you set up a proper nursery, Lily pleads. This place won't be ready before the baby comes. Actually, Eleanor gestures to a partially cleared area. I'm converting the old break room. Good natural light, close to my sleeping area. Lily's expression softens slightly. You've always been so stubborn. Dad said you got that from Grandfather Harold. Dad barely mentioned him, Eleanor notes. They were estranged for years after Grandmother Margaret died, or disappeared, whatever happened. Lily looks around. This place was the center of it all, wasn't it? Their big falling out. After Lily departs, promising to return with baby supplies, Eleanor finally approaches the hidden door. Heart pounding, she slips the brass key into the lock. It turns with surprising ease, as if recently oiled. The door opens to reveal a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Eleanor hesitates, one hand on her belly. The baby kicks, not frantically as before, but a gentle nudge, almost encouraging. From below comes the faint mechanical clicking sound that has haunted her nights. Hello? Eleanor calls down, her voice echoing back. Only silence answers, but she can't shake the feeling that something is waiting for her below. Something that knows she's here. She begins to descend, one careful step at a time, using her phone's flashlight to illuminate the way. The staircase spirals down farther than seems possible, given the building's known dimensions. The air grows cooler, carrying an unfamiliar scent, not the mustiness of abandonment, but something else, something alive. This wasn't in any blueprint, Hector murmurs, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness of the vast underground chamber. A space this size should have collapsed the foundation years ago. Eleanor moves forward cautiously, her own light revealing rows of ancient looms and spinning equipment, preserved as if frozen in time. Dust covers every surface, yet the machines appear oddly maintained beneath the grime. No rust, no decay. These machines are from the 1940s, she says, running her fingers along a wooden shuttle. Look at the craftsmanship. Hector inspects the ceiling. The support structures are remarkable, custom designed, almost organic in their placement. His contractor's pride seems challenged by what he's seeing. Your grandfather was either a genius or insane. Eleanor approaches the far wall where dozens of framed photographs hang in neat rows. Factory workers posed formally outside the building, arranged by year from the 1920s through the 1960s. May said this place employed half the town, she comments, studying the faces. Her light passes across a photo from 1943. She stops, moving close. Among the workers stands a young woman with Eleanor's high cheekbones and determined eyes. The resemblance is uncanny. Hector, look at this. He joins her, whistling softly. Family resemblance is strong. Eleanor checks the identification key beneath the photo. Margaret Garrison, she reads. My grandmother. She takes a picture with her phone, suddenly eager to show May. Something about the photo nags at her. Margaret stands slightly apart from the others, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. Was she pregnant? I thought you said she died young, Hector says. That's what I was told. Eleanor moves her light across the other photographs, tracing Margaret's presence through the years. She appears in every photo until 1964, when she vanishes from the record. A mechanical clicking, the same sound Eleanor has been hearing at night, echoes suddenly through the chamber. Both freeze. What machinery is still powered down here? Hector asks quietly. None, as far as I know. They follow the sound to a massive loom in the center of the room. By the time they reach it, the noise has stopped. Hector examines the machine. No power connection, he confirms, and no way this thing was making noise on its own. Eleanor's phone rings, breaking the tense silence. It's May, calling with unexpected information. I've been researching your grandmother, the historian explains when Eleanor answers. The official record says she died of pneumonia in 1964, but I found newspaper accounts of a factory accident that same week. A fire in the lower levels. I'm standing in the lower levels right now, Eleanor says, looking around with new appreciation. There's no fire damage. That's the strange part. The fire was reported. Then suddenly the story disappeared from the papers. Your grandfather shut down that section of the factory immediately afterward. After ending the call, Eleanor shares the information with Hector, who looks increasingly uncomfortable. I don't like this, he admits. Secret rooms, mysterious accidents, disappearing people. Maybe your sister's right about this place. You don't have to stay, Eleanor tells him, though the thought of losing his help fills her with dread. Hector sighs. My crew's already spooked. 2 quit yesterday, claiming they heard voices in the walls. He hesitates. But I gave you my word. We'll stabilize the upper floors at least. That evening, after Hector leaves, Eleanor returns to the underground chamber alone. She's drawn to the photographs, particularly the images of Margaret. Studying them chronologically, she notices her grandmother's expression changing over the years, from youthful hope to something more knowing, almost secretive. The mechanical clicking starts again, louder this time. Eleanor doesn't run. Instead, she waits, listening to the rhythm. It sounds almost like Morse code, but not quite. What are you trying to tell me? She asks aloud. The clicking stops. Then, impossibly, the massive central loom shudders, its shuttle moving slightly. Eleanor approaches it slowly. The wooden frame bears intricate carvings similar to the patterns on the brass key. She traces them with her finger, and the baby gives a forceful kick in response. You feel it too, she whispers. She spends hours researching online, searching for information about the Garrison factory's special weaving techniques. Most sources merely mention innovative patterns and proprietary methods, but one obscure textile history forum discusses Garrison weaves with almost mystical reverence. A user named Textile Historian 64 writes, Garrison fabrics were said to create optical effects that induced specific emotional states in viewers. The techniques died with the factory closure. Eleanor messages the user, asking for more information. The response comes quickly. Who are you and why are you asking about Garrison weaves? I'm Eleanor Garrison. My grandmother was Margaret Garrison. The reply takes longer this time. If you're really Margaret's granddaughter, you need to be careful. The patterns weren't just designs. They were a language. May's hands tremble slightly as she examines the worker's ID badge. Eleanor found tucked behind Margaret's photograph. The small metal rectangle, tarnished with age, still clearly displays Margaret Garrison's name and position, head pattern designer. But it's the reverse side that captivates May. Strange symbols etched into the metal, deliberate and precise. I've seen these before, the elderly historian murmurs, in the local historical archives. They were attributed to a folk magic tradition practiced by some of the mill workers. Eleanor leans closer. What kind of folk magic? A protective tradition. Some believed that certain patterns could ward off misfortune or attract blessings. May traces one symbol with her fingertip. This one represents motherhood, and this one, continuation like an unbroken thread. The workers were superstitious. It was more than superstition to them. May's voice grows quieter. There was a group, never officially acknowledged, who believed patterns held power. They called themselves the Weavers of Fate. Eleanor's skepticism must show on her face, because May chuckles. I know how it sounds, but these women took it very seriously. They believed certain combinations of symbols, when woven into fabric, could influence events. She points to another marking on the badge. This is the weaver's sigil. Margaret wasn't just a member. These additional marks suggest she was their leader. The renovation work continues above them, hammers and drills creating a constant soundtrack to Eleanor's days. She's set up a proper office now in one of the restored rooms, where she compiles her research on the factory and her family. Textile historian 64, who revealed herself as Dr. Amara Jenkins, a professor specializing in textile anthropology, has shared academic papers discussing the unusual psychological effects reported by people who viewed garrison fabrics. The patterns seem to induce specific emotional responses. Dr. Jenkins wrote in their latest exchange, "Some textiles created feelings of calm, others excitement. Your grandfather never revealed his techniques, and the scientific community largely dismissed the reports as suggestion or coincidence." Eleanor stares at the ID badge, mind whirling with possibilities. Could Margaret and her group have actually believed they were weaving what? Spells, destinies. The baby kicks vigorously, as if responding to her thoughts. "You've been more active since we found the underground chamber," Eleanor murmurs, rubbing her belly soothingly. The now familiar mechanical clicking begins again from below. It happens so frequently now that Eleanor has started recording the sounds, trying to decipher a pattern. She plays the latest recording for May, who listens intently. "It's not random," the older woman concludes. "It reminds me of the rhythm used in the old mechanical looms, but with variations I can't quite place." Later, alone in the underground chamber, Eleanor carefully examines each loom. Most are standard industrial models, but the central one, the one that sometimes moves on its own, is different. Its frame bears the same strange symbols found on Margaret's badge, and its construction seems more intricate than the others. "What were you making down here?" Eleanor whispers, running her hand along the dusty wood. The clicking starts, louder than ever. This time Eleanor is certain the sound comes directly from this central loom. She steps back, heart pounding, as the shuttle moves slightly along its track. "Hello?" she calls, feeling foolish but unable to stop herself. "Is someone here?" The clicking intensifies, then stops abruptly when Hector's voice calls down the stairway. "Eleanor? You down there again?" He appears at the entrance, looking uncomfortable. "We found something when removing a damaged wall section upstairs. In what was once an executive office, the workers have exposed a cavity behind the drywall. Inside sits a small wooden chest, its lid carved with familiar symbols. No one touched it," Hector assures her. "Seemed personal." Alone later, Eleanor carefully opens the chest. Inside lies a journal bound in faded red leather. The first page bears a simple inscription: Margaret Garrison, 1940-1960. The early entries detail ordinary factory life, but gradually shift to discussions of patterns, symbols, and the deeper work happening in the lower levels. An entry from 1943 reads, "The entity responds to the shuttle rhythm, believes it's merely vibrations affecting the structure. But I know better. It recognizes me now, responds to my presence, especially since the baby. I can feel it reaching out, curious." Eleanor nearly drops the journal. Margaret had been pregnant. The photographs showing her with a protective hand over her stomach weren't coincidence. She flips forward to the final entries from 1964. "The others fear what we've awakened, but they don't understand. It's ancient, yes, but not malevolent. It protects us as always protected the women who work with thread and pattern. Ert wants to seal the chamber, break the connection. He doesn't understand what will happen if the bond is severed." The final entry, dated the day before the reported fire, is vivid and chilling. "They're coming to close it all down. I won't let them. Some bonds transcend time and flesh. If necessary, I will become the pattern myself." "Stand back," Hector warns, positioning the sledgehammer against the newer section of wall they've discovered in the underground chamber. "This doesn't match the original construction. Different brick pattern, different mortar. Eleanor watches from a safe distance, one hand protectively cradling her belly. May stands beside her, clutching Margaret's journal. Whatever's behind there, your grandfather wanted it sealed away, May reminds her. Are you certain about this? Eleanor nods firmly. Margaret didn't want it sealed, and I need to know why. With 3 powerful swings, Hector breaks through. Dust billows outward as the bricks crumble, revealing a dark opening. Their flashlight beams cut through the darkness, illuminating a smaller chamber beyond. My God, May whispers. Unlike the main underground room with its industrial equipment, this hidden space resembles a sanctuary. The walls are covered with intricate murals of woven patterns that seem to shift and move in the dancing light. At the center stands a single loom, more ornate than any they've seen, draped with a partially completed textile. Eleanor steps forward, drawn to the fabric still stretched on the loom. The pattern defies description, geometric shapes flowing into organic forms that seem to pulse with life, even in the dim light. The colors remain vibrant despite decades of darkness. This is impossible, Hector mutters, examining the cloth. Pigments like this should have faded. Eleanor reaches out, her fingertips hovering just above the fabric's surface. The baby kicks forcefully, causing her to gasp. Eleanor, May moves toward her, concerned. I'm fine. The baby her words cut off as she touches the cloth. A jolt of energy, there's no other way to describe it, travels from the fabric through her fingers and spreads throughout her body. The sensation isn't painful, but intensely alive, like electricity without the shock. For a brief moment, Eleanor feels connected to something vast and ancient. She jerks her hand away, breathing heavily. What happened? Hector asks, alarmed. It's alive, Eleanor whispers. Somehow it's alive. May approaches the loom cautiously, studying the symbols carved into its wooden frame. These match the markings in Margaret's journal, and here she points to a series of symbols along the base. These are the same as on her ID badge. Eleanor examines the room more carefully. A small desk in the corner holds tools for weaving, shuttles, threaders and spools of thread that shimmer oddly in the flashlight beam. Along another wall stand shelves filled with completed textiles, each folded carefully and labeled with dates and cryptic notations. She selects one labeled Protection March 1964 and carefully unfolds it. The pattern makes her eyes strain to focus, the design seeming to reconfigure itself when viewed from different angles. The fabric feels unnaturally warm to the touch. This is what she was creating, Eleanor realizes. The special garrison weaves that people talked about. May nods slowly. The weavers of fate believed certain patterns, when properly constructed, could influence reality. Most dismissed them as superstitious, but your grandfather built this entire factory around their work. Hector, who has been examining the structure of the hidden room, calls them over. Look at this, he says, pointing to where the walls meet the ceiling. These aren't just decorative, they're structural supports disguised as pattern elements. Eleanor sees what he means. The swirling designs that cover the walls incorporate load-bearing columns and reinforcement points, making the engineering elements nearly invisible amid the artistic patterns. Hiding in plain sight, she murmurs. A sudden mechanical sound makes them all turn. The ornate central loom's shuttle moves on its own, sliding smoothly across the threads with purpose and precision. That's not possible, Hector backs away, eyes wide, but Eleanor moves closer, mesmerized by the shuttle's rhythmic movement. The pattern it's creating matches one of the wall designs, a spiraling motif with a central node that resembles a pregnant woman. It knows I'm here, she whispers. Back in the main factory that evening, Eleanor can't shake the sensation she experienced when touching the fabric. She describes it to May as they review Margaret's journal entries. She writes about the entity repeatedly, Eleanor notes, but never explains what it is. Just that it communicates through patterns and is especially responsive to pregnant women. May looks troubled. The old stories about the weavers mentioned a presence they channeled, something that existed before the factory, before the town even. You think it's still here? Still active after all these years? I think May says carefully that Margaret found a way to preserve it. Her final entry about becoming the pattern herself. What if it wasn't metaphorical? The implications hang in the air between them. Eleanor's hand moves instinctively to her belly, where the baby has grown still, as if listening. Whatever it is, she says finally, it's been waiting for me, for us. She looks down at her rounded stomach, and I think it's been protecting this child all along. Dawn light filters through the factory windows as Eleanor sits cross-legged on the floor of the hidden chamber, surrounded by Margaret's journals. She found them concealed behind a loose panel near the special loom. 5 leather-bound volumes spanning the years 1940 to 1964. Dark circles under Eleanor's eyes reveal she's been reading through the night. The earliest journal details Margaret's arrival at the factory as a young bride. Her entries evolve from mundane observations about factory life to increasingly complex reflections on patterns, energy, and communication. A passage from 1943 catches Eleanor's attention. The first time I felt it was during my pregnancy with James. The entity reached out through the threads while I worked at the loom. Not with words, but with impressions, emotions, and images that bypass language. Edge thinks I'm being fanciful, but the other women feel it too. Something ancient lives in this place, something that has worked with weavers since humans first twisted fibers into thread. Eleanor rests her hand on her belly, feeling the gentle movement within. James, she whispers, my father. The revelation that Margaret had been pregnant with her father while communicating with the entity sends a chill through her. Another entry, dated 1955, we've refined the patterns that strengthen the connection. The entity responds most strongly to expectant mothers, as if the creative force of bringing new life resonates with its own nature. It's neither male nor female, neither benevolent nor malicious. It simply is like gravity or time, but it can be channeled, directed through properly constructed patterns. The final volume contains increasingly urgent entries, as Margaret sensed a coming conflict. Hedge fears what he doesn't understand. The accident in the East Wing has frightened him. He doesn't see that it was protecting us, that without the warning pattern I'd woven the day before, the entire section would have collapsed, killing dozens. Now he speaks of closing the lower level, breaking the connection permanently. The last entry, partially burned along one edge, sends a chill through Eleanor. The entity has shown me another way. If the physical connection is broken, there can still be a thread between worlds. Someone must maintain the pattern from within. I understand now why it called to me all those years ago. I was always meant to be the conduit. May arrives, bringing coffee and concern. You've been down here all night. Eleanor, you need rest. I need answers. Eleanor counters, showing her the journals. Look at this. Margaret wasn't just communicating with something. By the end, she was preparing to become part of it. May sits beside her, expression grave as she examines the final entries. The fire in 1964, your grandfather reported Margaret died, but her body was never found. Because there was no body to find, Eleanor concludes. She didn't die in a fire. She chose to merge with whatever presence exists here. Their conversation is interrupted by a crash from above, followed by shouting. They hurry upstairs to find Hector sprawled at the bottom of a ladder, clutching his arm. 2 workers help him to his feet. What happened? Eleanor asks. The ladder moved. Hector grimaces through pain. I was inspecting the ceiling support and it just shifted away from the wall. Knocked me clean off. The workers exchange uneasy glances. It pushed him, one says quietly. We both saw it. The ladder didn't slip. It moved like someone shoved it. Later, after Hector leaves for the hospital with a fractured arm, Eleanor confronts the empty factory. Why did you hurt him? She demands aloud. He's trying to help. No response comes, but when she returns to the hidden chamber, the special loom is active, shuttle moving rhythmically across the threads. The emerging pattern shows a ladder, a falling figure, and what appears to be a wall section crumbling to reveal something ominous behind it. A warning, Eleanor realizes. You were warning. She studies Hector's renovation plans and discovers his team was about to break through a wall that, according to Margaret's journals, contains structural elements tied to the entity's presence. Eleanor calls Hector at the hospital. The northeast wall, you can't remove it. The building's support system is more complex than we realized. That's what I was checking when I fell, he admits. Something felt off about that section. That night, alone in her makeshift bedroom, Eleanor feels a new presence. The air thickens, and the familiar mechanical clicking sounds form a rhythm that almost resembles speech. "Margaret," she whispers. "Grandmother, are you here?" No voice answers, but the baby kicks in a pattern that matches the clicking perfectly. Eleanor places both hands on her belly, tears forming in her eyes. "You've been here all along," she murmurs. "Watching, waiting for another Garrison woman to continue what you started." She opens her pregnancy journal and begins recording symbols she's seen in the hidden chamber, her handwriting gradually shifting to match the style in Margaret's journals, as if guided by an unseen hand. The antique loom moves with purpose, its shuttle dancing across threads that shimmer with an inner light. Eleanor watches, transfixed, as patterns emerge without human hands guiding the process. She set up recording equipment around the chamber, cameras, sensors, anything to document the impossible activity. Professor Jenkins, the textile historian Eleanor contacted weeks ago, studies the footage with wide-eyed fascination. The academic arrived yesterday, skeptical but curious, and hasn't left the hidden chamber since. "In 30 years of studying textile traditions, I've never seen anything like this," Jenkins murmurs, adjusting her glasses. The pattern language is unlike any known weaving tradition, yet contains elements from cultures spanning continents and millennia. Eleanor points to a recurring motif in the emerging fabric. "This section appeared after I asked about the building's structural weaknesses, and this," she indicates another area, "formed when I mentioned my pregnancy. It's responsive," Jenkins confirms. "These aren't random movements. The entity, whatever it is communicating." May enters with a stack of historical records. "I found something in the town archives. Before the factory, this land belonged to a religious commune called the Harmonious Thread. They practiced textile-based meditation and claimed their special weaves could predict future events. Precognition through patterns," Jenkins mused. "It appears throughout textile history: Navajo storm patterns, Peruvian quipus, even Greek myths about the fates weaving destiny." Eleanor's pregnancy has progressed to 7 months, her body growing heavier while her connection to the entity strengthens. Each night brings dreams filled with intricate patterns and whispered guidance in a voice reminiscent of her own, yet older, wiser. "The patterns are a language," Eleanor explains, showing them her pregnancy journal, now filled with symbols that match those on the loom. "Not just communication, but a form of creation. The entity doesn't just predict, it manifests." Jenkins nods slowly. Ancient textile traditions often blurred the line between recording events and creating them. The word text shares the same root as textile. Both weave meaning into existence. The loom suddenly accelerates its movements, the shuttle flying across the threads with urgency. The emerging pattern shows what appears to be a human figure falling, surrounded by crumbling walls. Another warning, Eleanor breathes. As if summoned by the premonition, Hector calls. His voice is tight with concern. "The crew found something in the northeast wall, the one you told us not to touch. Ground-penetrating radar shows a massive cavity behind it. The whole section could collapse." After ending the call, Eleanor faces the others. "The building is more unstable than we realized. Hector wants to abandon the renovation." "Perhaps that would be wise," Jenkins suggests carefully. "No," Eleanor's response is immediate. "We can't leave, not now." May studies her face. "You've connected with it, haven't you?" "With Margaret." Eleanor doesn't answer directly. Instead, she approaches the loom, placing one hand on her belly and the other on the wooden frame. The shuttle stops, waiting. Show me how to stabilize the building, she says quietly. The loom resumes its work, creating a pattern that resembles the factory's structural layout, with critical points highlighted in vibrant red threads. Eleanor photographs the pattern, sending the images to Hector with specific instructions. His reply is skeptical but resigned. This goes against standard engineering practices, but we'll try it your way. Later, as construction crews reinforce the areas indicated in the pattern, Eleanor confronts a difficult truth. The entity isn't just communicating with me, she tells May and Jenkins. It's changing me. The symbols in my journal, I don't remember writing half of them. Sometimes I find myself by the loom without remembering how I got there. Margaret's journals mention similar experiences, May reminds her. She described it as a merging of consciousness. Is it Margaret? The entity? Both? Eleanor shakes her head. All I know is that it's protecting us, me and the baby. Jenkins approaches with a troubled expression. I've been analyzing the pattern fragments. There's something you should see. She lays out photographs of patterns from different time periods, including the one currently forming on the loom arranged in sequence. It's telling a story, the professor explains, not just about the factory, but about the garrison women. See this motif? It appears consistently across generations, always connected to a female figure carrying new life. Eleanor studies the progression, a chill running through her. It's not random that I inherited this place while pregnant. The entity has been orchestrating this for generations. The question is why, May says quietly. Before anyone can respond, Eleanor gasps, doubling over as a sharp pain radiates through her abdomen. When she straightens, her hands are stained with blood. Something's wrong with the baby, she whispers, fear gripping her heart. The loom erupts into frenzied movement, its shuttle nearly invisible with speed, creating a pattern so complex it hurts the eyes to look upon it directly. As Jenkins calls for an ambulance, Eleanor staggers toward the loom, drawn by an instinct beyond rational thought. She presses both hands against the emerging fabric, blood smearing across the threads. Help us, she pleads. The entire chamber seems to pulse with energy, the walls themselves appearing to breathe. The bleeding stops as suddenly as it began, and Eleanor feels the baby shift and settle within her. It protected you, May whispers, awestruck, just as it protected Margaret. The hospital corridor feels sterile and alien after weeks in the atmospheric factory. Eleanor lies on the examination table, the paper crinkling beneath her, as Dr. Chen studies the ultrasound monitor. The bleeding has stopped completely, the doctor notes, moving the wand across Eleanor's rounded belly. And your baby's vitals look strong. But these early contractions concern me. Eleanor stares at the ceiling, the hospital bracelet tight around her wrist. Is bed rest necessary? Not yet, but you need to reduce stress. Dr. Chen's expression grows stern. Living in a construction zone during your third trimester isn't ideal. Do you have somewhere else you can stay? Lily, who insisted on driving Eleanor to the hospital, jumps in from her chair in the corner. She'll stay with me. I've already prepared the guest room. Eleanor begins to protest, but Dr. Chen interrupts. Your sister's right. At least consider it until after your next appointment. In the hospital cafeteria afterward, Lily pushes a cup of tea toward Eleanor. You scared me, Ellie, when May called saying you were bleeding. I'm fine. The baby's fine, Eleanor assures her, though the episode had terrified her too, because you got immediate medical attention. Lily counters. What if it happens again in that dusty factory in the middle of the night? Eleanor traces the edge of her hospital bracelet, torn between the pull of the factory and the undeniable logic of her sister's concern. There was an old woman in the waiting room, she says instead of answering directly. She recognized me, said she used to work at the factory. This town is full of former mill workers, Lily dismisses. She grabbed my arm and said, it won't let you leave, not until you finish what Margaret started. Lily's expression darkens. This obsession with grandmother Margaret isn't healthy. You're fixating on local superstitions instead of your own well-being. You don't understand what's happening there, Eleanor says quietly. I understand that my pregnant widowed sister is living in a condemned building, talking about entities and magical looms, and just had a medical emergency. Eleanor falls silent, unable to explain the inexplicable connection she feels to the factory, to the presence within it. Back at the factory that evening, against Lily's strenuous objections, Eleanor finds May and Professor Jenkins in the hidden chamber, studying the pattern created during her medical crisis. The loom hasn't moved since you left, Jenkins informs her. It's as if it's waiting for your return. May approaches with concern. How are you feeling? Should you be back so soon? The doctor says I'm stable. Eleanor says, not mentioning the recommendation to stay elsewhere. What did you find while I was gone? Jenkins gestures to the fabric on the loom, a pattern it created during your emergency. It's a medical diagram of a pregnant woman's body, focusing on the placenta and uterine wall. Remarkably accurate for something created by an entity with no formal understanding of human anatomy. It knew exactly what was happening to me, Eleanor murmurs, approaching the loom. As she draws near, the shuttle twitches, as if sensing her presence. May hands her a newspaper clipping she found during Eleanor's absence. This might explain the old woman you met. In 1964, 3 pregnant women who worked at the factory reported unusual experiences, hearing voices from the looms, dreaming of patterns. All 3 disappeared during the week of the fire that allegedly claimed Margaret's life. Disappeared? Or joined with the entity like Margaret did? Eleanor wonders aloud. The question, Jenkins says carefully, is whether these mergers were voluntary. Eleanor's hand moves instinctively to her belly. You think the entity took them? That it somehow needs pregnant women? I think Jenkins chooses her words deliberately, that powerful forces often require vessels. Throughout history, entities have sought human intermediaries, particularly those in the process of creation themselves. Like pregnancy, Eleanor whispered, the creative force of bringing new life might resonate with whatever this entity is. Jenkins confirms. Margaret's journals suggest she chose her fate, but did the others? A chill runs through Eleanor as she recalls the old woman's warning in the hospital. The loom suddenly activates, weaving a simple yet chilling pattern. 5 female figures, 4 transparent, 1 solid. It's showing us. May breathes. 4 women already joined with it, and it wants me to be the 5th, Eleanor finishes. Later that night, unable to sleep, Eleanor sits in her makeshift bedroom, studying the hospital bracelet still on her wrist, tangible evidence of her brush with crisis. Outside her window, storm clouds gather, reflecting her turbulent thoughts. The baby kicks, a strong, healthy movement that brings both relief and renewed worry. What does it want with us? She whispers to her unborn child. With you. The factory creaks around her, and for the first time, the sound brings fear rather than comfort. Is she being protected or guided toward something inescapable? Eleanor opens her pregnancy journal, flipping past pages now filled with symbols she only half remembers writing. On a fresh page, she writes with deliberate clarity, I am Eleanor Garrison. I make my own choices. Whatever entity resides here, I will protect my child from it if necessary, even if it means walking away from whatever Margaret started. As she writes the final word, the lights flicker throughout the factory, and a low, mournful sound like wind through ancient reeds fills the air. A warning, or a lament. There's something else down there, Hector announces, studying the ground-penetrating radar display. Below the chamber we already found. Eleanor, May, and Professor Jenkins gather around the screen, where ghostly outlines suggest a 3rd level beneath the factory, deeper than the architectural plans indicate should be possible. The foundation shouldn't extend that far down, Hector continued. According to all records, we should be hitting bedrock, not hollow spaces. Eleanor feels a familiar sensation, the baby responding to proximity to the underground chambers with increasingly active movements. We need to find a way down there. Not we, Hector corrects firmly. If there is another level, I'll investigate with proper equipment and safety protocols. You're 7 months pregnant, Eleanor. But when they descend to the hidden chamber with the special loom, they find the situation has changed. The far wall, previously solid, now reveals a narrow opening, as if the building itself has shifted to create a passage. "That wasn't there yesterday," Jenkins whispers. "Impossible," Hector mutters, examining the edges of the opening with his flashlight. "This is solid stone. It would take heavy equipment to create this kind of breach." May touches the wall beside the opening. "Unless something wanted us to find what's below." Eleanor approaches the passage, feeling drawn toward whatever lies beyond. The baby kicks vigorously, almost painfully. "I'm going down," she announces. "Absolutely not," Hector protests. "We have no idea if it's structurally sound." "I'll be careful," Eleanor insists. "And I won't go alone." After much debate, a compromise is reached. Hector will lead with proper safety equipment, followed by Eleanor, then May and Jenkins. They will retreat immediately at the first sign of danger. The passage descends in a gentle spiral, the walls smooth as if worn by centuries of use. Eleanor trails her fingers along the surface, feeling subtle indentations, patterns carved into the stone, nearly invisible until touched. "These markings," Jenkins observes, "they're similar to the symbols in Margaret's journals, but older, much older." The air grows cooler as they descend, carrying a faint, earthy scent reminiscent of clay and running water. After what seems an impossibly long descent, the passage opens into a vast circular chamber. Hector's powerful flashlight reveals a space utterly unlike the industrial rooms above. This chamber appears ancient, its walls formed from fitted stone without mortar. At its center stands a massive stone altar, its surface covered with carvings that match the patterns from Margaret's journals and the special loom. This predates the factory by centuries, May breathes, awestruck. Perhaps even predates European settlement entirely. Jenkins approaches the altar cautiously. These symbols blend Native American and European motifs, but with elements I've never seen documented in either tradition. Eleanor feels an overwhelming pull toward the altar. The baby moves within her, aligning with the strange vibration that seems to emanate from the stone. "The harmonious thread commune I found in the records," May says slowly. "They claim to have built their settlement on a place of power, where the veil between worlds was thin, a place where creation itself could be accessed through proper patterns." Eleanor places her hand on the altar. The stone feels warm, alive under her touch. They didn't build on it. They built around it, to protect it, or to contain it. "And then your grandfather built the factory for the same purpose," Jenkins concludes. Layer upon layer of containment and concealment. Hector, who has been examining the structural elements of the chamber, calls them over. "Look at this," he says, pointing to where the circular walls meet the ceiling. "These aren't just decorative, they're load-bearing elements for the entire factory above." The whole building is literally supported by this chamber. Eleanor studies the patterns that flow across the ceiling, intricate knotwork that connects to form a unified whole. It's all one pattern, she realizes. The factory, the looms, even the town layout, they're all part of a larger design centered around this altar. As if responding to her understanding, the stone altar begins to glow faintly, pulsing with a soft blue light that seems to emanate from within the rock itself. The carvings on its surface shift subtly, rearranging into new configurations before their astonished eyes. "It's responding to you," May whispers to Eleanor. Hector backs away, visibly unnerved. "This isn't possible. Stone doesn't just move. Not unless something is moving it," Jenkins suggests. "Something that has been here far longer than any of us." Eleanor circles the altar, studying the changing patterns. One configuration catches her eye, a small depression that seems perfectly sized to hold something. She reaches into her pocket, pulling out the antique brass key that opened the first hidden door. "It was never just a key to a door," she murmurs, fitting it into the depression. It slides in perfectly, and the altar's glow intensifies. A panel in the side of the altar slides open, revealing a hidden compartment containing a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. Eleanor carefully extracts it, turning it over to reveal the name written on the front in faded ink. Eleanor Garrison. It's addressed to me, she whispers. How is that possible? This has been here for decades. May's expression is grim. Either your grandfather knew you would come here someday, or whatever is in this chamber exists outside our understanding of time. Jenkins finishes. Eleanor's hands tremble as she breaks the wax seal on the envelope, carefully extracting a letter written in faded ink. On yellowed paper, the handwriting is neat, precise. A stranger's hand that somehow shaped her destiny. My dear granddaughter Eleanor, she reads aloud, her voice echoing in the ancient chamber. If you are reading this, then the patterns have aligned as I foresaw. You have found your way to the heart of what our family has guarded for generations. May and Jenkins exchange glances as Eleanor continues. The entity beneath the factory is far older than human civilization. The native people called it the pattern maker, believing it wove the fabric of reality itself. The harmonious thread commune built their settlement here to commune with it. I built the factory to contain it after I realized its power. Eleanor pauses, her free hand moving instinctively to her belly as the baby shifts within her. The stone altar continues to pulse with soft blue light, as if listening. Your grandmother Margaret understood the entity better than anyone. She recognized that it was neither good nor evil, simply a force of creation seeking expression through human vessels. The weavers of fate became its conduits, weaving patterns that could influence reality itself. Hector paces nervously. This is insane. Forces of creation, influencing reality. Eleanor continues reading. When Margaret became pregnant with your father, the entity's connection to her intensified. She believed the creative force of new life resonated with the entity's nature. What she didn't realize until too late was that the entity was preparing her for a more permanent bond. The chamber seems to grow colder as Eleanor reads the next passage. The fire in 1964 was my desperate attempt to seal the entity away after it claimed Margaret and 3 other pregnant women. I failed. Instead of destroying the connection, I merely contained it, building layers of walls and floors to bury the truth. But the entity is patient. It has waited for another Garrison woman carrying new life. Jenkins approaches carefully. Your grandfather knew you would come here. Eleanor nods, continuing to read. I have seen the patterns, Eleanor. I know you are pregnant as you read this. The entity has been drawing you here since you inherited the factory. It needs a Garrison woman to complete what Margaret began. The baby kicks forcefully, as if responding to the words, you have a choice that Margaret did not. The entity cannot take you unwillingly. The merger requires consent. It offers tremendous power, the ability to protect your child from any harm, to shape reality through woven pattern. But the price is your humanity. What remains will no longer be fully Eleanor Garrison. May places a comforting hand on Eleanor's shoulder as she reads the final paragraphs. If you choose to contain the entity, you must seal this chamber permanently using the pattern I've enclosed, a binding weave that will hold for another generation. If you choose to embrace it, place your hand on the altar and speak Margaret's name 3 times. Whatever you decide, know that I have always been with you, even in absence. Your grandmother and I made our choices. Now you must make yours. With eternal love, your grandfather, Harold Garrison. Eleanor lowers the letter, noticing for the first time a small fabric swatch enclosed with it, a simple pattern of interlocking triangles that somehow repels the eye. The binding pattern, she murmurs. Eleanor, Hector says urgently, we need to seal this place. Your grandfather was trying to protect people. Jenkins studies the stone altar with scholarly fascination, a force of pure creation, seeking human vessels to express itself. Throughout history, people have encountered such entities and built religions around them. But what happened to Margaret? Eleanor asks quietly. Did she truly consent, or was she somehow coerced? As if in answer, the stone altar's glow intensifies, and the patterns carved into its surface shift to form a familiar face. Margaret Garrison, her expression serene yet somehow alien. She's still here, Eleanor whispers. Part of her, at least. The image holds for a moment, before dissolving back into abstract patterns. The message is clear. Margaret remains preserved within the entity. May studies Eleanor's face with concern. What will you do? Before she can answer, the entire factory shudders around them. Dust falls from the ceiling as a low rumble permeates the structure. Earthquake? Hector rushes to the chamber entrance, checking structural integrity. No, Jenkins says, studying instruments she's set up to monitor the building. It's localized to the factory alone. Something is happening to the building itself. Eleanor suddenly gasps, doubling over. The baby, it's responding to the entity. I can feel them, communicating somehow. May helps her to a nearby stone bench. Are you in pain? No, it's more like resonance. Eleanor straightens slowly. The entity isn't just connected to the Garrison women. It's connected specifically to our children. Jenkins approaches with a theory forming. The next generation. What if it's not the women it wants but their unborn children? Vessels being literally created, perfect for housing a force of creation. Eleanor's eyes widen with sudden understanding. It doesn't want me, she whispers, both hands cradling her belly protectively. It wants my baby. The rumbling intensifies, dust cascading from the ceiling as the ancient chamber trembles. Stone grinds against stone, the very foundation of the factory shifting around them. We need to get out of here, Hector shouts over the noise. The whole place could come down. Eleanor clutches the stone altar for support as the violent shaking nearly knocks her from her feet. The blue glow brightens to blinding intensity, patterns swirling across the surface with frenetic energy. It's responding to your revelation, Jenkins yells. You've discovered its true intention. They stagger toward the exit, the spiral passage now visibly deforming as the earthquake, if that's what it is, continues to reshape the underground chambers. Eleanor feels the baby moving frantically within her, as if equally desperate to escape. The journey upward becomes a desperate scramble. Twice the passage partially collapses behind them, narrowly missing Hector, who brings up the rear. When they finally emerge into the hidden chamber, with the special loom, they find it transformed. The walls cracked, the ceiling sagging dangerously. Keep moving, May urges, helping Eleanor navigate around a fallen support beam. They've barely reached the factory's main floor when a thunderous crash echoes from below, the hidden chamber collapsing entirely. The main floor buckles beneath their feet, throwing them all to the ground. Eleanor cries out as she falls awkwardly, pain shooting through her side. Hector immediately crawls to her. Are you hurt? The baby? I don't think anything's broken, she gasps, allowing him to help her to a sitting position. But something's wrong. This isn't a natural earthquake. Through the windows they can see that the world outside remains calm. Trees standing motionless, no panicked townspeople fleeing buildings. The phenomenon is confined to the factory alone. It's trying to prevent us from leaving, Jenkins realizes. It knows we've discovered its purpose. A massive crack forms across the main floor, splitting the concrete like paper. From the fissure, an unearthly blue light pulses, the same energy they witnessed in the stone altar. The containment is breaking, May says, her voice tight with fear. Your grandfather's safeguards are failing. Hector helps Eleanor toward the exit, but a section of wall collapses, blocking their path. The factory seems to be sealing itself, trapping them inside. There's another way. Eleanor directs them toward the administrative offices, the side entrance. As they navigate the increasingly unstable building, debris raining down around them, Eleanor feels a strange dual awareness, her own fear mingling with something else, a vast alien consciousness pushing against the edges of her mind. It's trying to communicate, she gasps, stopping suddenly. Eleanor, we have to keep moving, Hector insists. No, wait, I need to understand. She closes her eyes, allowing the foreign presence to flow through her thoughts. Images flood her mind. The creation of the universe, threads of reality woven into existence, the entity's long wait beneath the earth, its discovery by humans who sensed its power, and finally, its interaction with the Garrison women. Margaret, most of all. It doesn't want to harm the babies, Eleanor says, opening her eyes. It wants to share consciousness with them, a symbiotic relationship. It believes human children are the perfect vessels because they're still forming, still connected to the creative force of the universe. Whether it means harm or not, doesn't matter, May argues. It's still trying to possess unborn children without consent. A section of ceiling crashes down mere feet away, emphasizing the urgency of their situation. We need to get out now, Hector urged. Philosophical debates can wait until we're safe. They reach the side entrance only to find it warped in its frame, impossible to open. Hector grabs a piece of fallen pipe and smashes the adjacent window. As he clears the glass for their escape, Eleanor notices a large crack forming in the foundation stone beneath his feet. "Hector, move," she shouts, but too late. The floor gives way beneath him. Eleanor lunges forward, catching his hand as he falls into the widening fissure. May and Jenkins grab Eleanor, preventing her from being pulled down with him. For one terrible moment, Hector dangles above a seemingly bottomless chasm, filled with pulsing blue light. His eyes meet Eleanor's, wide with terror. "Hold on," she pleads, straining to maintain her grip, despite her awkward, pregnant body. "Let go," he tells her, understanding the impossibility of their position. "Save yourself and the baby." "No." Eleanor refuses to release him, but she can feel her grip weakening. The building shudders again, the vibration breaking their tenuous hold. Hector falls, swallowed by the pulsing light below. "Hector!" Eleanor screams, lunging forward only to be restrained by the others. The broken foundation stone, dislodged in Hector's fall, tumbles after him. Eleanor notices symbols carved into its underside, protective markings that had been hidden from view for decades. The cornerstone, May breathes. It was part of the containment. As if confirming her words, the factory's violent shaking suddenly ceases. An eerie calm descends, more frightening than the chaos preceding it. "It's free," Jenkins whispers. "Whatever your grandfather tried to contain has been released." Through the broken window, they see townspeople gathering, drawn by the commotion. Sirens wail in the distance. Eleanor stares back at the now quiet building, tears streaming down her face. "Hector," she murmurs, "I'm so sorry," but beneath her grief, she feels the entity's satisfaction and its continued focus on the child within her womb. Eleanor sits motionless in May's living room, a cup of untouched tea growing cold beside her. 2 days have passed since the earthquake. Since Hector's fall, search and rescue teams found no trace of him in the rubble below the factory, only a strange scorching pattern on the concrete where the fissure had been. The police are calling it a localized seismic event, May reports, setting down the newspaper. They've cordoned off the factory pending structural assessment. Professor Jenkins looks up from her laptop. "The energy readings I recorded match nothing in scientific literature. Whatever force was contained beneath that building, it's unlike anything modern physics can explain." Eleanor barely hears them. Her mind keeps replaying Hector's fall, his face as their fingers slipped apart. But beneath her grief runs a current of something else, a growing awareness of the entity's presence, no longer confined to the factory, but somehow diffused throughout the area. And most disturbingly, she feels its continued focus on her unborn child. "I found something," Jenkins says, breaking Eleanor's reverie. The professor places an ancient-looking ceramic vessel on the coffee table, a two-handled chalice covered with familiar symbols. "Where did you get that?" May asks. "From the Historical Society archives. It belonged to the Harmonious Thread Commune." Jenkins points to markings around the rim. These inscriptions describe a ritual involving 2 participants drinking simultaneously. Eleanor leans forward, drawn to the chalice. "What kind of ritual?" "A choice between containment and merger." Jenkins traces the symbols carefully. One path leads to binding the entity, the other to embracing it. But the ritual requires two willing participants, representing opposite intention, like the binding pattern in my grandfather's letter versus Margaret's choice to merge. Eleanor muses, exactly. The entity cannot be destroyed, only contained or embraced. Each generation faces this choice anew. May studies Eleanor with concern. The entity is free now. What happens if no one contains it? According to these texts, Jenkins indicates ancient documents spread across the table. It will continue seeking vessels, particularly unborn children with genetic connections to previous hosts. Like my baby, Eleanor whispers, hands protectively cradling her belly. And not just yours. The town records show unusual birth patterns following periods when the entity was active, children with remarkable abilities and unusual psychological profiles. A knock at the door interrupts them. May returns moments later with Lily, whose worried expression shifts to relief upon seeing Eleanor. Thank God you're okay, Lily embraces her sister tightly. When I heard about the factory collapse, I'm fine, Eleanor assures her, though the words feel hollow. But Hector, her voice breaks. Lily sits beside her, taking her hand. The police chief told me. I'm so sorry, Ellie. After a moment of shared grief, Lily notices the artifacts spread across the table. What is all this? May and Jenkins exchange glances, unsure how much to reveal. Eleanor makes the decision for them. The truth about our family, she tells Lily, gesturing to their grandmother's journal. About what happened to Margaret Garrison, and what's happening now. Over the next hour they explain everything, the entity beneath the factory, the weavers of fate, Margaret's merger, and the entity's interest in Eleanor's unborn child. Lily listens with increasing disbelief, finally standing in frustration. This is insane. You're talking about some mystical force, targeting my sister's baby, and you're all acting like it's perfectly reasonable. I've recorded empirical evidence, Jenkins begins. I don't care about your readings, Lily interrupts. My sister is 7 months pregnant and traumatized from watching a man die. She needs medical attention and rest, not whatever this is. Lily, Eleanor says quietly, I know how it sounds, but I've felt it. The baby has felt it. Something is connecting with us, something powerful and ancient. So what are you going to do? Lily demands. Perform some ritual with this glorified wine cup. Eleanor's gaze falls on the two-handled chalice. The entity presents two paths. Grandfather chose containment, Margaret chose merger. And both choices had consequences, Jenkins notes. Containment requires constant vigilance, renewed with each generation. Merger means sacrifice of self. There must be a third option, May suggests. A way to coexist without either complete separation or complete surrender. Eleanor stands carefully, her pregnant body heavy with more than just physical weight. I need to return to the factory. Absolutely not, Lily objects. It's structurally unsound and off-limits. The entity won't hurt me, Eleanor says with unexpected certainty. It needs me, needs my consent for whatever it's planning. How can you be sure? May asks. Because I can feel it waiting. It could have taken me during the earthquake, but didn't. It's offering a choice, just as it did to Margaret. Lily looks at her sister with growing alarm. You're not actually considering saying yes to this thing. I'm considering all options, Eleanor replies, her hand resting on her belly where the baby moves with unusual stillness, as if listening. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about my child and whatever legacy the Garrison women have been part of for generations. Jenkins carefully lifts the two-handled chalice. The ritual requires two participants with opposing intention. If you truly want a third path, perhaps that's where we start, by understanding both perspectives simultaneously. Eleanor takes the chalice, feeling its ancient weight. Then I need someone who represents the opposing view. Someone who wants only protection, not merger. Her eyes meet Lily. I need my sister. You can't seriously be considering this, Lily argues as they approach the factory under cover of darkness. Yellow police tape flutters in the night breeze. Warning signs posted at every entrance. Eleanor moves with surprising determination despite her advanced pregnancy. I need answers only the entity can provide. Professor Jenkins and May follow with flashlights and equipment. The factory stands eerily silent against the night sky, its damaged silhouette somehow more imposing than before. The structural engineer's report indicates the main floor is relatively stable. Jenkins notes, ducking under the police tape, it's the sub-levels that suffered catastrophic damage. They enter through a side door, finding the interior transformed. The earthquake has altered the very architecture. Walls bulging in impossible configurations, floor rippling like frozen waves. Most striking are the patterns now visible throughout the structure. The same symbols from Margaret's journals and the ancient chamber, embedded within the building materials themselves. They were always here, May realizes, tracing a sequence of markings on a support column, hidden within the structure, invisible until now. Eleanor feels the entity's presence immediately, no longer confined below but permeating the entire factory. The baby responds with tintal movements, as if greeting something familiar. This way, she says, drawn toward the administrative offices where she first stayed. The office area has remained largely intact. Eleanor heads directly to a filing cabinet and pulls out a document she somehow knows will be there, her own birth certificate. The official hospital form bears a small notation in the margin, handwritten in faded ink. Born on site, relocated for registration. I was born here, Eleanor whispers. In the factory, not in a hospital like I was told. May examines the document. The attending physician listed is Dr. Harold Garrison, your grandfather. My mother never mentioned this, Eleanor says, struggling to process the revelation. Lily takes the certificate, frowning. Why would Mom lie about where you were born? Because she was part of it too, Eleanor realizes. Another Garrison woman connected to the entity. Jenkins studies the document closely. There's more. Look at these symbols in the margins. They match the protective patterns from your grandfather's letter. Eleanor traces the tiny markings with her finger. He was trying to shield me from the entity. Even then, they continue exploring, finding the main office transformed into something resembling a birthing chamber. Medical equipment merged with ritual space. Modern technology interwoven with ancient symbols. Your grandfather prepared for the possibility of Garrison women giving birth here. Jenkins theorizes. Continuing the lineage under controlled conditions, Eleanor approaches what appears to be an examination table at the center of the room. As she draws near, the entity's presence intensifies, not threatening, but expectant. It's been waiting for this moment, she murmurs. For generations. Lily grabs her sister's arm. Eleanor, this is crazy. We need to leave. Not yet. Eleanor gently removes Lily's hand. There's something else here. Something I need to find. Drawn by instinct, Eleanor moves to a wall safe hidden behind a painting, a safe she had no prior knowledge of, yet somehow knows the combination to open. Inside lies a small wooden box containing family documents, her parents' marriage certificate, her father's birth certificate, and most surprisingly, a letter addressed to her mother in her grandfather's handwriting. Mum was supposed to continue the guardianship, Eleanor says, scanning the letter. But she rejected it completely, took Dad and left town, cutting all ties with grandfather. Breaking the cycle, May suggests. Until now, Jenkins adds quietly. Eleanor continues reading, her expression growing increasingly troubled. According to this, every Garrison child for generations has been born in this factory, connected to the entity from birth. The women who embraced merger became part of the entity itself. Those who chose containment became its guardians instead. And your mother chose neither. Lily says, she ran, but the entity found a way back to us anyway. Eleanor places a hand on her belly. Through me, through my child. As if responding to her understanding, the entity's presence surges around them. The building itself seems to vibrate with energy. Dust falling from the ceiling as the structure resonates with power. It's reacting to your revelation, Jenkins warned. We should leave before. Her words are cut short as the floor beneath them begins to glow with the now familiar blue light, patterns spreading across the surfaces like living things. Eleanor, Lily pleads, whatever you're feeling, whatever connection you think exists, it's manipulating you. No, Eleanor says with strange certainty. It's revealing the truth. Our family has never been ordinary. We've always been connected to something greater. The light coalesces around Eleanor, illuminating her from within as the baby moves vigorously in response. The entity doesn't just want my child, she whispers, understanding flooding her. It wants to complete the pattern begun generations ago. It wants all of us, past, present, and future Garrisons, joined in a single consciousness. Ellie, please. Lily begs, think about what you're saying. Eleanor turns to her sister, her eyes reflecting the unearthly blue glow. I've never seen more clearly. This is our heritage. Lily, this is who we are. The special loom in the partially collapsed chamber below begins to operate on its own, its rhythmic clicking echoing throughout the factory. The sound draws Eleanor downward, navigating carefully through debris where stairs once stood. The others follow reluctantly, Jenkins documenting everything with scientific precision, despite her obvious fear. The entity is creating something, Eleanor explains, as they reach the damaged chamber. Preparing for the ritual. The loom works with impossible speed, threads seeming to materialize from nowhere as a fabric takes shape, a flowing iridescent garment unlike anything they've seen before. The pattern incorporates every symbol they've encountered, protection marks from Harold's letter, communication sigils from Margaret's journal, and ancient motifs from the stone altar. It's for you, May realizes, a ceremonial robe. Eleanor approaches the loom, mesmerized by its movements. The fabric appears to shimmer with internal light, colors shifting like oil on water. Don't touch it, Lily warns, but Eleanor reaches out anyway. As her fingers contact the cloth, the loom stops. The garment is complete. Eleanor lifts it carefully, the material feeling both substantial and ethereal, as if woven from solid light. I need to put this on, she says quietly. Eleanor, please, Lily begs. Think about what you're doing. I am thinking, Eleanor responds, more clearly than ever before. She turns to her sister with unexpected compassion. You're afraid because you don't understand. Let me show you. Before Lily can object further, Eleanor slips the garment over her clothes. The effect is immediate. The robe seems to meld with her, conforming perfectly to her pregnant form. The symbols begin to glow softly, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Oh my God, Jenkins breathes, checking her instruments. The energy readings are off the charts. Eleanor feels the entity's presence intensify, flowing through the garment into her. But instead of fear, she experiences a profound sense of connection to Margaret, to her grandfather, to generations of Garrisons who came before. Most powerfully, she feels connected to her unborn child, their consciousnesses touching in a way that transcends the physical. I can sense them all, she whispers. Everyone who's ever been part of this. They're still here, still aware. Eleanor, May approaches cautiously. What exactly is happening to you? The entity isn't just showing me. It's letting me experience what merger means. Eleanor's eyes reflect the blue glow emanating from the symbols. It's not about possession. It's about expansion, becoming more than just an individual consciousness. Lily shakes her head vehemently. That thing is influencing your thoughts. This isn't you talking. It is me, Eleanor insists. But also more than me. A rumble shakes the building, and dust falls from the damaged ceiling. Jenkins checks her phone. Structural engineers and demolition crews are scheduled to arrive tomorrow morning, she reports. They're planning to condemn the building. They can't destroy this place, Eleanor says with sudden urgency. It's sacred ground. If the connection is severed completely, then what? Lily challenges. The entity loses its foothold in our world. That sounds ideal to me. You don't understand what's at stake. Eleanor's voice carries new authority. This isn't just about our family. The entity maintains balance in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. As if confirming her words, the factory responds, damaged sections beginning to subtly realign, fractured supports, straightening imperceptibly. It's repairing itself, Jenkins observes in astonishment. No, Eleanor corrects. We're repairing it together. May approaches with the two-handled chalice. If you're determined to proceed with the ritual, you still need a second participant, someone with the opposing intention. All eyes turn to Lily, who backs away. No, absolutely not. I won't help with this madness. The ritual requires balance, Eleanor explains gently. Two perspectives, two intentions, creating a third path forward. I need someone who will prioritize protection above all else. Someone who loves me enough to stand against me if necessary. And that's supposed to be me? Lily's voice breaks. Helping you surrender to this thing? Not surrender, Eleanor corrects. Partnership. And your role isn't to help me merge. It's to ensure I don't lose myself completely in the process. Lily stares at her sister, tears forming. I can't lose you, Ellie. Not after everything else we've lost. You won't lose me, Eleanor. Promises. You'll be my anchor, my connection to humanity. Before Lily can respond, a new sound penetrates the chamber, sirens in the distance, growing closer. Someone reported trespassers, Jenkins says, checking her phone. The police are coming. We're out of time, May warns. Whatever you're going to do, it needs to happen now. Eleanor takes the chalice, offering one handle to her sister. Please, Lily, I need you. Lily hesitates, torn between fear for her sister and trust in her conviction. Finally, with trembling hands, she grasps the opposite handle. I'm doing this to protect you, she states firmly, not to help this entity. That's exactly what the ritual requires, Eleanor smiles sadly. Opposing intentions, creating balance. As the police sirens draw nearer, Eleanor begins reciting words she somehow knows, the language ancient, yet familiar on her tongue. The factory responds, the blue light intensifying around them as the ritual begins. Police flashlights sweep across the factory's exterior as officers approach the building. Inside, the ritual intensifies, reality bending around the sisters as they hold the ancient chalice between them. Eleanor's voice rises and falls in the unknown language, the words flowing through her as if she's always known them. The ceremonial robe pulses with light, symbols activating in complex sequences. Lily maintains her grip on the chalice, her expression determined despite her fear. What's happening? Jenkins whispers to May as the air around them thickens with energy. The convergence of opposing intentions, May responds, watching in awe. Protection and connection, separation and merger. The chalice begins to fill with a luminous blue liquid that appears from nowhere, the entity's essence taking physical form. The first thread emerges from the special loom, rising into the air of its own accord, a glowing strand that hovers before Eleanor. Drink, Eleanor tells her sister, her voice overlaid with others, as if multiple generations of Garrison women speak through her. Lily hesitates. What will happen? Balance, Eleanor answers simply. Together they raise the chalice, each drinking from their respective side. As the liquid touches their lips, the hovering thread connects to Eleanor's heart, creating a visible link between her and the entity. Outside, demolition crews arrive, unloading equipment under police supervision. Inside, the ritual reaches its climax. The factory transforms around them, walls shifting and flowing like liquid, the building itself becoming a manifestation of the entity's power. The damaged structure doesn't collapse, but reconstructs, ancient patterns emerging from within ordinary building materials, revealing the true nature of what Harold Garrison created. Eleanor gasps, her consciousness expanding beyond her physical form. Through the connecting thread, she experiences Margaret's final moments. Not a desperate escape from fire, but a willing transformation, stepping into the entity's realm to prevent a catastrophic collapse that would have killed dozens of workers. She saved them all, Eleanor whispers, tears streaming down her face, and remained conscious within the entity, guiding it through the decades. Lily maintains her grip on the chalice, anchoring her sister to humanity, even as Eleanor's awareness stretches beyond normal perception. "Stay with me, Ellie," she pleads. The connecting thread pulses brighter, and Eleanor's pregnant belly glows in response, the unborn child becoming part of the circuit between human and entity. Jenkins' instruments short out, unable to process the energy flooding the chamber. "The baby," Eleanor gasps, understanding flowing through the connection. It's not trying to possess the child, it's recognizing itself. "What does that mean?" May asks, steadying herself against a wall that seems to breathe beneath her hand. "The entity has been part of the Garrison bloodline for generations," Eleanor explains, knowledge pouring into her. "Each child born here carries a fragment of it. We're not just its guardians or vessels, we're its descendants." The factory continues its impossible transformation, the outer shell maintaining its appearance while the interior becomes something else entirely. A space that exists partially between dimensions, connecting to wherever the entity originated. "The building is disappearing from our reality," Jenkins reports in disbelief, watching solid matter become translucent, then transparent at the edges. "Not disappearing," Eleanor corrects. "Transcending, becoming what it was always meant to be. A bridge between worlds." Outside, the demolition team's equipment malfunctions as they attempt to begin work. Police radios crackle with static, compasses spin wildly, and electronic devices fail throughout the area. Inside, Eleanor suddenly doubles over in pain. "The baby," she gasps. "Something's wrong." Lily immediately breaks the ritual connection, setting down the chalice to support her sister. "We need to get her to a hospital." But Eleanor shakes her head, understanding flowing through the entity connection. "No, it's not danger, it's completion. The ritual is affecting my pregnancy." The connecting thread between Eleanor and the entity pulses with increasing brightness, becoming almost blindingly brilliant. Through it she feels the presence of every Garrison who came before, Margaret most strongly, but others too, generations of women who maintained the connection in different ways. "They're all still here," she whispers in wonder, still conscious within the entity. The thread suddenly detaches from Eleanor's heart and moves toward her belly, hovering over the unborn child. For a moment, everything hangs in perfect balance, human and entity, past and future, separation and connection. "What's happening?" Lily demands, still supporting her sister. "The final choice," Eleanor answers, "whether to complete the merger or maintain separation." May approaches cautiously. "What does the entity want?" "Not what my grandfather feared," Eleanor says with certainty. "Not possession, but partnership, recognition of what we already are, two aspects of the same existence." The glowing thread hovers, waiting for Eleanor's decision. In that suspended moment, she feels the weight of generations before her, and generations yet to come. "I choose both," she announces clearly. "Connection without surrender, partnership without loss of self." The thread responds immediately, dividing into two intertwined strands, one returning to Eleanor's heart, the other gently touching her belly before withdrawing into the fabric of the transformed factory. "A new pattern," she breathes, understanding the significance. Neither containment nor merger, but coexistence. As the ritual concludes, the factory stabilizes in its transformed state, still recognizably a building in the physical world, but now housing something much more within its walls. 3 months later, sunlight streams through newly installed windows in what was once the factory's main floor. The space has been transformed into an airy community center, with a special area dedicated to textile art. Several looms occupy the space, each one in use by local artisans, creating fabrics with subtly protective patterns woven into their designs. Eleanor moves through the room with a quiet grace, her body no longer heavy with pregnancy. In her arms, she carries her newborn daughter, wrapped in a blanket unlike any other, woven from threads that sometimes seem to glow with an inner light when the baby stirs. The intricate pattern in the fabric shifts subtly as it responds to the infant's movements, maintaining a perfect temperature and gentle pressure that keeps her content. The first class starts next week, May informs her, gesturing to the workshop schedule posted on the wall. We already have a waiting list for the traditional pattern weaving course. Eleanor smiles, adjusting the blanket around her daughter's tiny face. Margaret would have approved. The patterns should be shared, not hidden. The transformation of the Garrison factory into a community center focused on traditional textile arts happened with remarkable speed after the night of the ritual. The demolition was halted when structural engineers found the building had somehow stabilized itself overnight. The damage from the earthquake mysteriously repaired. Lily approaches, professional camera in hand. I got some great shots for the website, she says, showing Eleanor preview images of the renovated space. The investors will be impressed. After the ritual, Lily had surprised everyone by becoming the project's strongest advocate, securing funding to preserve the building as a historical landmark and community resource. Though she remains cautious around the more metaphysical aspects of the center, she has embraced her role as Eleanor's connection to the practical world. Has she shown any new abilities? Lily asks quietly, nodding toward the baby. Nothing dramatic, Eleanor assures her. She's just unusually calm around the looms, watches the shuttles like they're speaking to her. Which they probably are, Jenkins adds, joining them. The professor has extended her sabbatical indefinitely to study the phenomena centered around the building and the Garrison bloodline. The energy readings in the weaving room spike whenever she's present. The baby makes a small sound, and Eleanor instinctively moves toward the special loom now installed in a quiet corner of the center. Unlike the other looms, this one is never used by the artisans or students. It operates on its own schedule, creating patterns that Eleanor has learned to interpret, sometimes warnings of minor dangers, sometimes celebrations of small joys. It's active today, she notes as the shuttle begins to move on its own, creating a simple pattern that suggests content. Jenkins checks her instruments. The connection remains stable, no signs of the entity attempting to extend beyond the agreed boundaries. The ritual created a new relationship between the Garrison family and the entity, neither the complete merger Margaret embraced, nor the rigid containment Harold enforced. Instead, a symbiotic partnership formed, with clearly defined boundaries maintained through the patterns Eleanor weaves weekly on the special loom. Hector's body was never found, but traces of his consciousness sometimes emerge in the patterns created by the entity, suggesting that some aspect of him continues to exist within its expanded awareness. Eleanor honors his memory by ensuring the structural integrity of the renovated building exceeds all safety codes, using both modern engineering and the entity's knowledge of how to reinforce matter at deeper levels. Eleanor May calls from the entrance, "Your first appointment is here." A young woman enters, visibly pregnant and nervous. Eleanor welcomes her warmly, leading her to a private consultation room where protective textiles hang on the walls. "The patterns called to me in my dreams," the woman explains hesitantly. "My grandmother used to work here before the factory closed." Eleanor nods, recognizing another thread in the larger pattern. "The old knowledge finds those who need it," she says, offering the woman a seat. "We can create something to help you and your baby navigate the connection safely." Later, as evening falls, Eleanor sits in what was once her grandfather's office, now repurposed as her own. The baby sleeps peacefully in a bassinet beside her, the special blanket gently pulsing with subtle light. She opens her journal, no longer just a pregnancy diary, but a record of her unique role as intermediary between worlds. The symbols she writes now are conscious choices rather than unconscious channeling, a language she has learned to speak rather than merely transmit. "We're finding balance," she writes, "not just between the entity and humanity, but between past and future, between containment and freedom. The factory that was falling apart has become whole again, as have I. The building settles around her with a gentle creaking, not the sound of structural weakness, but of a living thing, adjusting to accommodate its inhabitants. Eleanor feels the entity's awareness flowing through the walls, moors and ceiling, present but respectful of boundaries, powerful but no longer seeking to dominate. Her daughter stirs in her sleep, tiny fingers grasping at the special blanket. Eleanor watches as the fabric responds, the pattern shifting to form a protective circle around the baby. "Your heritage is complicated," she whispers to her sleeping child, "but you'll never face it alone. Unlike Margaret, unlike my grandfather, unlike me, you'll understand from the beginning who you are, where you come from, and what you might become." The special loom in the corner begins to move on its own, creating a new pattern that speaks of future possibility. Eleanor smiles, recognizing the message woven into its design. Not an ending, but a continuation, threads connecting past to future, entity to humanity, in patterns yet to be revealed.